And we're back.
Hello, everybody. It's episode 70 of the Horror Guys. 70, where we're going to talk about movies, horror movies, kind of horror-ish movies. The one is not too horror-ish. Horror-ish. Got to be careful how you enunciate that.
I think they're all horror-ish.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the first one seemed less-ish. The Brute Man.
He was a monster.
Oh, not really. You just misunderstood.
Well, I described a lot of monsters.
Malformed and misunderstood. And angry.
Yeah, see if Frankenstein doesn't fit
Okay, I
enough.
guess technically he could be a monster. But
he was like Frankenstein without the electricity.
But he was nice to the blind girl.
So was Frankenstein.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves, though. So what do we got? We got the Brute Man, and we got Frankenstein Created Woman, and...
Count them, two Amityville Horrors.
The original and the reboot. So...
The Amityville Horrors.
We should talk about these, eh?
Okay.
Here we go.
Get out.
Yeah. Getting ahead of yourself again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So first up we got The Brute Man, eh?
We do, The Brute Man.
A classic black and white from 1944. Another Rondo Hatton film.
Yeah.
The guy who had acromegaly and ended up looking kind of odd.
You may not remember his name, but you know him when you see him.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, this is directed by Gene Yarbrough, written by George Bricker and M. Coates Webster. Stars Rondo Hatton, Tom Neal, Jan Wiley. 58 minutes.
A short one, but it seemed like a lot happened.
Well, that's the way these things always seem to work. They're short and a lot happens.
And again, poor Rondo Hatton looking all brutish and monsterish with minimal makeup. He really looked that way, yeah.
The monster without makeup.
Huge jaw and huge forehead, and yeah. Well.
And in this one, they explain how he used to be good-looking when he was young, and he got deformed in a chemistry experiment.
An accident.
Yeah. And in reality, Rondo Hatton's real own life story is pretty darn close to that. He was a good-looking young guy who got deformed with some kind of chemical gas attack in the war.
Yeah, and it affected him and triggered the acromegaly, is what the story goes.
We've seen pictures. He wasn't bad looking when he was young.
Yeah. Normal looking. Yeah.
Not so normal later.
Whatever caused it to kick in, yeah. And that's what he ended up dying of shortly after these movies, too.
Shortly before this movie was even released.
Yeah, this one, yeah.
So he never got to do the red carpet treatment.
No.
Did they even have red carpet treatments back in black and white days?
Yeah.
Did they have red?
I believe so. Yes, red had been invented. Yeah.
You sure?
It was one of the first colors they came up with in the
30s.
30s, yeah. I've seen The Wizard of Oz. I've seen the Ruby Slippers. That was before this.
That was like 15 years before this. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Color was hard.
They could have done color, but no. Stick with black and white.
Had any of the Universals been colored by this point?
Not
that
many.
one Phantom of the Opera wasn't
many.
it? The one with all the opera in it?
Yeah, I believe so.
But I think that was color.
It was expensive and not real practical and costly, and they went with black and white as a default for a long time, even though they could do color.
Well, they were still doing black and white in some of the 1960s Hammer films.
Yeah. Well, some of those was an artsy choice, too. But, yeah. Black and white's cheaper and easier, I guess, or was.
Yeah, it still is. Well, I don't know if it's cheaper, but it's still an artsy choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this one, do you like it, Brute Man?
Overall, yeah. Of his movies, I like this one the best.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we start out. There's a radio call, and the police respond. There's been a murder. Mm-hmm. We see the creeper slinking away before the cops arrive. He hides in the bushes and pops out to meet Joan, who doesn't recognize him when he mentions that he's Hal Moffat. She screams as he breaks her neck. Crunch.
Breaks her back. It's his trademark way.
He sort of just folds people over.
Yeah.
Well, he runs and the police pursue him. He climbs up a fire escape to get away from them and crawls into an apartment where he hears piano music. A woman named Helen lives there, and she's a blind piano teacher. She's very nice and tells the police there's no one else there, and he escapes with her help. Moffat orders food delivered, but when the delivery boy gets nosy, the creeper takes care of things. Crack.
So it's not just a revenge flick. I mean, it is, he's getting revenge on these people, but that delivery guy didn't have it coming.
He would have turned him in. I mean, nobody wants to get caught.
Oh, I know. But
at that point, he had to.
He's killing innocent people, too.
So. In for a penny, in for a pound.
As the saying goes.
Yeah. So the police haven't got a clue, and the commissioner is pointing a finger at everyone else. The police investigate the missing delivery kid, and they find a bundle of news clippings about the young, good-looking Hal Moffat. The police question Clifford and Virginia Scott, who were also named in those news clippings. Hal Moffat was their friend back in high school. They haven't seen him since college, when something happened to Hal. In the last year of college, he was a huge football hero. The two guys were both in love with Virginia. Cliff changed Hal's chemistry paper to cause him fail the class.
And embarrassed him in front of the class.
Yeah. So Hal had to stay after school working in the chemistry lab. Hal then had an accident there that disfigured his face. The police warned Cliff that the creeper might be coming after him.
Well, and it was... Hal blames the other guy, too, because he didn't know the chemistry very well, and this other guy told him the wrong things to mix and he ended up doing a dangerous mixture because he was led to believe that that's how you were supposed to do it. So he kind of blames the guy for giving him this misinformation, and he didn't look it up himself, apparently. He just took the guy's word for it.
No Google.
Yeah.
Pre-Googles.
Didn't work out.
Well, then the creeper kills a jeweler as he tries to buy a gift for Helen the blind woman. The two really start to hit it off. He likes her, and she likes him as well, since she can't see his face. Helen mentions that, hey, I might be able to get an operation to fix my blindness with some more money. It's very expensive. He's not real thrilled with that, because he knows that if she sees him, he's done for.
But he likes her.
He really
likes her.
That night, the creeper breaks into Cliff and Virginia's house. Virginia doesn't recognize him either, but Hal doesn't kill them, but instead asks for money or jewels this time. Cliff then shoots the creeper, but the creeper crushes the life out of Cliff. Crunch.
Yeah, it's one of those times when, the monster is down and out, or the big brood or whatever, and you get all cocky and get too close to them, and they're not really dead.
Like when you kill the mountain in an arena and then stand there and gloat for 5 minutes until he crushes your eyeballs out, that kind of deal.
Yeah. That kind of thing, yeah.
Haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
Well, he then gives the jewels to Helen, who goes to the pawn shop and tries to pawn them. The pawnbroker recognizes that they're stolen and calls the police.
Yeah, they're very distinctive jewels, and there's an APB out on the jewels that the police sent all the jewelers in the area. And,
Wasn't much of a plan,
no.
Well, Helen tells the police everything, and they let her go. Hal the creeper then returns to Helen's apartment to kill her for telling on him, but the police grab him instead. And eventually, somebody somewhere pays for Helen's operation because she needed a happy ending, and why not? Yeah. All right, well, I don't know if this one was restored or not, but the copy we watched was really clear and sharp and had really good sound. One of the best-looking black and white ones we've seen.
Yeah, it was.
Rondo Hatton has a lot of actual speaking lines in this one, which is kind of unusual. And he's a lot more sympathetic here than in the other films.
Yeah.
He was almost, well, he wasn't a good guy. He killed a bunch of people. But you could see why. It made sense.
Yeah.
And this was actually a prequel to House of Horrors, which released the year prior to this one. And it was also Rondo's last film. He died before this one was even released. And I think House of Horrors was probably a better film. But if you like that one, then you probably should see this one too, because they really do go together.
I recommend this one.
You like this one better?
I did like this one better, yeah.
This film was after House of Horrors, but it's a prequel. So take that how you want.
You can watch them in order or watch them in order that they came out.
Yeah. Speaking of watching things in order, then there's Frankenstein, which...
Frankenstein Created Woman.
It's kind of a weird sequence on this one. It's a reboot.
It's Peter Cushing as Frankenstein again, but not the same Frankenstein.
No, none of that other stuff happened.
It is a reboot.
Alternate universe kind of thing.
1967, and in color.
Only way to go now is color with Hammer.
Yeah.
What was it? The Nanny or something was the last black and white one?
I believe so.
Yeah, it's been a little while now. So directed by Terrence Fisher, written by Anthony Hines, like all of them. Stars Peter Cushing, Susan Denberg, and Thor Lee Walters. Hour and 28 minutes. Link in the show note to pick up yourself a copy.
Did you like this one?
I like this one. Fine.
I like this one a lot. Different take on the Frankenstein story.
Yeah, same thing, only different.
Yeah, very different. I liked it.
Everybody likes Peter Cushing, but some of the Frankensteins are better than others.
This was
Definitely.
a good one. Yeah. And different. Not the typical,
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, we open on a shot of the guillotine. A man is to be beheaded, and he yells jokes and curses at the priest. He's not taking it too seriously. The man then sees his son, Hans, standing there watching him, and he sobers up real quick. The boy watches the decapitation and runs off. Credits roll. Yeah, I don't want him to see me die. No, no. Chop. Daddy, Daddy, no. Very sad.
Yeah.
We laughed.
And then, years later...
Hans is now grown up and hears voices when he sees the guillotine.
Oh, I think he's just flashing back. He's not literally hearing voices.
Memories.
Yeah.
He now works for Dr. Hertz, who is working on freezing people, it looks like.
Not quite an Igor, but more of an assistant.
Yeah.
He's
He's got Dr. Frankenstein frozen in a coffin in his lab. Well, they manage to revive him with electricity, and Frankenstein wants to know if he could trap a soul in a dead body.
For long term, because he was
The whole thing is really one of Frankenstein's experiments.
Yeah, he was basically
is not in
dead.
charge.
He was next thing to dead, frozen, and they revived him, and he was still...
Thing is, if you were genuinely frozen like that, frozen stiff, you're not going to wake up until you defrost. Even if this could work.
That's actually one of the goofs that they pointed out. He's supposedly frozen solid, and they pick up his arm, and it's all nice and loose and floppy, and it'd be frozen stiff.
It was only an hour, though. I mean, you can't freeze a piece of meat in an hour.
Yeah.
Probably wouldn't kill him either.
Especially a warm, juicy, living person.
Yeah.
But
anyway, the whole point...
The experiment, he's delated with the results, and he feels great after he wakes up.
From the experiment, he's learned that a soul does not leave the body in less than an hour. It takes more than that, because he's still got one.
Yeah, his heart was actually stopped. He was clinically dead.
Yeah. Dead, but still has his soul, which is important later.
Yes.
So Hans has a crush on Christina, the barkeeper's daughter. She has a deformed face and a limp and is very ashamed of it. 3 young troublemakers force their way into the tavern and make fun of Christina. Hans then comes to her defense, but the fight doesn't end well for anyone. Christina and Hans talk, and all she wants to do is look normal, and she doesn't want to have to hide her face. Hans doesn't care. He's in love with her right now, but she cannot get over her own face. I mean, she's no Rondo Hatton.
No, but she's all scarred up on one side, and she uses her hair to mask it.
And there's something wrong with her arm and leg, too.
Yeah,
She walks like the
side,
mummy.
Yeah, that whole side is messed up.
Yeah. Frankenstein and Hertz are working late in their lab. They use electricity to make a glass indestructible. He shoots it and nothing happens.
Yeah, it kind of makes a force field.
Yeah.
And he's thinking, ooh, if I can make this a dead person inside that force field, I could trap their soul and it wouldn't escape. What he's thinking. Because science.
Yeah. Well, he thinks it can give life after death. He believes he can trap the soul inside a body by using a sort of force field.
Or trap the soul in some other vessel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like brains in a jar or something.
Yeah, only soul in a bottle.
Yeah. Well, the 3 troublemakers break into the tavern and kill Christina's father when he returns that night. Hans sees Christina run off on her trip to see another doctor, but as he returns home, the police nab him for the murder. What was his alibi? He was sleeping with Christina, but he won't tell.
Because he's defending her honor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he won't say
There's some limit where the honor has to go,
Yeah.
Well, the 3 troublemakers testify against him at the trial, and he's quickly found guilty and sentenced to be beheaded. Dun, dun, dun. That escalated real quick.
Yeah.
Well, Frankenstein sees this as a valuable opportunity.
Ooh, somebody's about to die.
Yeah, they plan to take Hans's soul and preserve it in order to put it into another dead body. Christina then returns just in time to see Hans's head roll. Literally, she's running up the hill. Wait, I've got an alibi. And chop.
Yeah.
So Christina then drowns herself in the river. Also escalating
Also
quickly.
fortuitous for Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah, quite coincidental.
2 dead bodies at once.
Two dead bodies. Frankenstein and Hertz do their thing, and soon they have Hans's soul trapped. Meanwhile, the villagers find Christina's body and take her to Hertz. So now they have Christina's body with no soul, and Hans's soul with no body. Oh, they wouldn't, would they?
Yes, they would.
Yeah, they would.
Yeah.
They do. And they also fix her face while they're at it.
Because Frankenstein's a brilliant surgeon.
If that was so easy, why? No, well, he could have done it before, probably.
Could have, yeah.
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 None of these other doctors could.
He was busy with his electricity and freezing and,
Yeah.
Not time for such
larger
trivialities.
concerns.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Before long, Christina has questions that no one really wants to answer.
Yeah, because she doesn't really have much memory, but she's kind of starting to remember.
Random things.
Yeah, but she's kind of starting to remember both their lives. Yeah. So it's an identity crisis.
Finally, to see what happens, they take her to the guillotine, where she remembers Hans's father being killed there. Of course, she wasn't there for that.
But she's sort of Hans, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that night, Christina wakes up in a trance and goes out on a revenge spree. 1, 2, 3 troublemakers.
Yeah, she goes all, I spit on your grave on them. Yeah.
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 Before long, the villagers come to the conclusion that witchcraft is at work, and maybe the crazy baron on the hill has something to do with it. Frankenstein can prove that Hans is dead. All they have to do is dig up the body.
Mm-hmm.
Except when they do, the head is now missing.
Awkward.
He didn't take the head.
Christina did.
Yeah. Frankenstein...
Christina/Hans.
Yeah. He wants to talk to himself, and of course you need your own head for that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Frankenstein actually tells the whole truth to the police in order to hunt Christina down. He doesn't lie. He doesn't say, these things are above you. These are things you don't need to know. He actually tells them what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
So Frankenstein then hops in a carriage and rushes out to prevent the next murder. He catches up to Christina, who then jumps off a cliff and dies.
Well,
that was sudden.
There's more to it than that. But yeah, it was a little bit abrupt.
Yeah, it was.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, this is not a continuation of the previous Hammer Frankenstein films. It's more of a soft reboot or alternate universe kind of story. Frankenstein is still the Baron, and he's not yet created any monsters at the beginning of this film. This is his first undead creature.
Yeah.
Frankenstein looks quite a bit older in this film than in the previous incarnations, and it's only been a year or so since the previous film, so it's not a matter of Peter Cushing aging.
They probably didn't youth him up as much for the...
Yeah, this was a directorial choice of some kind.
Mm-hmm.
There's also something wrong with his hands in this film. He wears gloves, and he needs Dr. Hertz to do all the surgeries for him, and that's never really explained.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but Frankenstein tries to prevent the murders and regrets his decisions in the end of the film. He's clearly not the evil scientist portrayed in the earlier Hammer films.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin joked toward the end that this was a lot like I Spit on Your Grave.
Yeah.
And although it's not nearly that gory, the main themes of her revenge and the plot are still there. This is definitely a revenge film more than anything else.
A gal been wronged and she kills him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like The Brute Man. Mm-hmm. I like Frankenstein Created Woman.
A
couple of good classics.
So far we got a win.
And then we have our short film for the week.
Mm-hmm.
The Halls from 2019.
Written, produced, directed, Zano Alexander. This is Zano Studios. And I'm assuming the actor is Zano. It doesn't say that.
Probably, yeah.
Probably is, yeah.
Chief bottle washer and top cook.
I thought this was a creepy little nugget of a film.
Yeah, 3 minutes, 15 seconds, so it's a shorty.
I had chills watching it.
Was it cold in the room?
I got in. I was into it, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked this one.
All right,
yeah.
Well, we start in a dark hallway with a man trying to open a door with a key.
Like getting into his apartment and he can't.
I've had locks like this. You got the key and it still don't work.
Yeah.
Well, he finds a picture of the hallway that he's standing in hanging on the wall. And he looks at it, and it's the same hallway he's in. And it's very dark. Mm-hmm. The picture falls to the floor, and he then picks it up. And he noticed the thing that was in the picture standing behind him is not in the picture anymore.
Not in the picture. Huh. Wonder where it is.
Wonder where this is going.
Yeah.
Well, the accompanying text in the it's a YouTube video. We get link in the show notes. But the accompanying text mentions that his best experiences with the sound turned way up. So you just know there's going to be jump scares. Spoiler. There are.
And it's creepy.
There are
music
jump scares.
Music is creepy.
Yeah. It's really, really short.
It's really short.
It's got one actor.
Really good.
Very simple story.
Sorta.
but it's very good. Yeah, it's certainly worth 3 minutes of your time.
Yeah, you should check this one out.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So speaking of other movies you should check out, we've got The Amityville Horror from 1979. I think I was like 12 when this came out.
It was scarier when I saw it when I was 13.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
I know the book creeped me out a lot.
I saw it at the theater.
Do you remember back when you went, like in elementary school, every week they come up with these little newspapers where you could buy books. You just check off the ones you wanted, and you bring in your money, and the books would come in. Mm-hmm. I miss those.
I like those. Yeah, I was thinking about those this morning.
Well,
book fairs.
Yeah, and I know why. I saw the same thing you did. But I got the Amityville Horror through one of those.
Wow.
Which was a pretty intense book for a kid, that one of those things.
Wow, I didn't get anything that adult on those.
I don't know how that slipped in there. It was a popular movie at the time, though. Mm-hmm. And that book really freaked me out at the time. It's got a really good ending in the book. I still like the ending.
I read the book much later. I saw the movie when it came out at the theater. I read the book years later.
I did just the opposite. I read the book when it came out, and then didn't see the movie until probably videotape time or something a couple years later. So, 1979, directed by Stuart Rosenberg, written by Sanders Stern and Jay Anson, the guy who wrote the book, stars James Brolin, Margot Kidder, Rod Steiger, hour and 57 minutes, and if you haven't seen it, check out the show notes. There's a link on Amazon. You can pick it up really cheap. Mm-hmm. And it's good.
Mm-hmm. It's all right.
I was looking to get the book in Kindle because I was curious to read it again. And there's no Kindle version.
There's not.
You can buy an audiobook or you can buy a physical book. There's no Kindle version of this.
They're missing out.
They are.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Liked it better back then.
I liked it better back then too, but I think it holds up pretty well.
Yeah, pretty well.
I mean,
well,
if I had never seen it before, I still would be entertained.
I'm way more skeptical now.
Well, yeah. If you leave off the whole true story business.
Inspired by true events.
Kevin's pet peeve number 2 after high school students.
Movies that are inspired by true events.
They never are.
Because they're inspired.
Well, this
by
is
true
inspired
events.
by.
Yeah, but they're not like it actually happened.
All right, well, we begin by seeing gunfire in the windows of the Amityville house. This is the murder of the DeFeos, which we've already seen in 2018's The Amityville Murders, a prequel to this film made 30 years later. Mm-hmm. And they were all killed at exactly 3:15 a.m. 1 year later, George and Kathy Lutz buy the place and move in.
Now, these facts are not disputed. The murders happened, and the Lutzes did, in fact, buy this house a year later and move in.
Real life, true.
From there, well, they say weird things happen to them, weird and scary things, and
you sound skeptical.
I feel skeptical. Yeah,
I believe every word.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, the realtor says there's nothing else like it on the market, not at this price. And as the realtor walks through the house, we get flashbacks to the original murders. 1 month later, they're mostly moved in. Father Delaney comes over to bless the house. Everyone else is outside, so he starts without them. The door locks, and the flies start building up by the thousands.
This is Rod Steiger.
Yeah.
Who's always good in a role.
Yeah.
He always becomes a role. He's always impressed me in his acting ability.
I don't think I've seen him in that many things, but yeah, he's always good. Mm-hmm. Well, he gets sick, and then hears the words, "Get out!" So he leaves, but then finds out later that night that he's got blisters all over his hands where he touched things.
Yeah, not good,
Yeah. George and Kathy are having some sexy time when they're interrupted by their daughter, who doesn't like the new house. Later that night, at 3:15, George is wide awake. He goes to check on the kids and looks out the window. He sees that the boathouse door is open, so he goes out to check it. He gets a jump scare, and after that, George starts acting weirder and weirder.
It's got the classic horror movie stuff in it. Jump scares and creepiness. And,
it's a basic horror movie. It's nothing special.
No body count other than the original murders.
That's true. Yeah, nobody actually dies.
It's not that kind of movie. It's just scary.
Yeah.
Is that too much
the
of a spoiler?
The priest has had better months, but yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think nobody dies as a spoiler.
Okay.
It's a 40-year-old movie.
Yeah.
79 is 41 years ago.
If people don't know by now,
You see, there's this house, and it's got funny windows, and it's haunted.
Except it doesn't now, because some owners after that, the little eye windows, you probably see
the distinctive thing.
The distinctive, they replaced them with just plain old rectangular windows now.
Less tourists
the
that
row
way.
house, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Less people walking up taking snapshots.
And this wasn't filmed at the Row House.
None of them were.
No.
None of these were. They were all done in various other houses that look sort of like that.
Mm-hmm. And studios.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so he goes out and checks it, gets a jump scare, and he's never quite right again. Kathy then calls Father Delaney, who is now in a coma. His younger colleague, Father Bolin, knows that he went to the house, but Kathy says otherwise because she never saw him that day. And Helena, who is a nun, stops by for a visit, and that goes badly too.
Yeah, this house doesn't like religious people.
No. Kathy then wakes up at 3:15 that night and screams, "She was shot in the head!" Okay. Which nobody actually knows that at this point.
Yeah.
Or she doesn't know that at this point. It just comes to her in a dream. Well, the two priests head over to the house the next day and have a traffic accident. One damn thing after another.
Mm-hmm.
The claustrophobic babysitter has an incident in the closet. Father Delaney argues with his superiors about the evil in the house, and they tell him to chill out and take a vacation. He might be taking it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Weird things continue until one night at 3:15, George hears the flies, and then the front door explodes.
Outward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They call the police, but they can't explain it. The police do mention George looks just like one of the DeFeos.
Huh.
More and more, George becomes unhinged. Well, the daughter's imaginary friend, Jody, peeks through the window at Kathy with bright red eyes, which I think is like the only good shot in the movie.
That was a cool shot.
Yeah, the red eyes
One of the
made me
best
crazy when I kept seeing the trailers when I was 12. What are those eyes?
Ah, creepy.
They find a hidden room in the basement, and it's all red inside. Father Delaney has a bad experience at church, leaving him blind. George beats on Kathy for a little bit, and he's clearly getting still worse.
You know, speaking of the Red Room, and I don't know when I saw it or where I saw it, but I do remember seeing a debunking type show where some current owner, a gal was in the Red Room, and she's like, "Yep, it's the Red Room. Yep, we're under the stairs in the basement, and yep, dunk, and solid walls, not hollow and not hidden, and there's no cavernous pit."
You say it was red brick,
and,
right?
It was
normal
painted.
red brick.
It
was
painted.
painted.
It was painted red. Yeah, I do remember that bit of debunking that I saw at some point. But anyway.
So you're saying it's true. There is a red room.
There's your red
and
room.
there is an invisible portal to hell in it. You can't see the invisible portal to hell, but it's there.
Because it's invisible. Anyway.
Yeah.
You were telling us about this. Anyway.
I'll have you convinced by the time we're done.
I interrupted. I'm sorry.
I'll have you convinced.
Yeah.
Well, Kathy does some research and finds that George is a spitting image of Ronald DeFeo, the kid who killed his whole family in the opening sequence. On the final night, George sees a monster upstairs and storms through the house with an axe, and the walls drip with blood. They all escape to the van, but George goes back to the house after Harry the dog. How badly could that go? Well, George has an interesting adventure in the basement, and then they finally escape to the van, where they make a lot of money by getting some guy to write a hit book about their crazy misadventures. And I've heard that basically they bought this house that they couldn't afford. They wanted to give up the house, and this is the story they made up with to give themselves an excuse to get away from the house and not have to pay for it. They realized after moving in there's no way they could afford to stay there.
No.
So yeah, this was all wasn't even intended as a hit book or a story. It was intended so they could get out of their mortgage, which I don't know how that works. And if it did work or not, I don't know.
Just kind of snowballed from there. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, the movie is really well done, I thought, and holds up pretty well even today. I remember being terrified by the book when I was 10 or 12, and then being disappointed by the film when I saw it later.
And if you just sit back and be entertained, and
the climax of the book and the climax of the movie are not the same. The book had it better. Had some really memorable creatures. The acting is good, especially Brolin and Steiger. Margot Kidder is just sort of there for star power. The music is memorable and creepy. The little childish music. And the pacing is mostly pretty good too, although it does get a little draggy in the last half hour.
A little bit.
That's the time a horror movie shouldn't be draggy.
No.
Yeah. On the other hand, I still think the book's ending is better. I do.
All in all, a thumbs up.
Yeah.
A weak thumbs up from me.
Way better than the Amityville Horror from 2005, which we're going to review next.
A reboot. Taking even more liberties with the original story.
How can we take the story that everybody knows and make it different?
Well, they kind of do.
Let's add crap.
Well, and George Lutz, the guy that is all based on, he said, "Hey, you can't make this reboot without me involved." And the studio said, "Yeah, we can." And he said, "I'm going to take you to court." And they said, "Go ahead. We'll go ahead and make the movie in the meantime," which they did. And they were still fighting it back and forth in court when George Lutz died in 2006.
Why would they need him? I mean, they got the story.
Well, he wanted to be part of it and wanted some money off it. Some money. 'Cause I guess they cut him out, and he's not part of. They didn't consult him or anything. They just said, we're going to reboot it and make our own little story.
This is also loosely based off the book, which is loosely based off of him.
And I don't know how the sequels worked, and the prequel and everything, but this one specifically, with it being the reboot of the original.
You mean like the 8 or 9 sequels?
There's some, yeah.
There's some.
But anyway, this one he fought with in court, and it was still being fought when it was not resolved. So that's the story there.
And he still lives today in the Amityville Horror, looking out these square windows.
So
trying to be creepy in square windows. It's harder.
Ryan Reynolds played him this time.
Yeah, directed by Andrew Douglas, written by Scott Kozar and Jay Anson. Stars Ryan Reynolds, Melissa George, and Jimmy Bennett. Hour and 30 minutes. So it's a little shorter than the other one. Did you like it?
Yeah. Overall, yeah. Pretty good. Again, a weak thumbs up. Not loving it, but yeah. Overall,
give it a 6,
7,
maybe a 5,
7.
I did not care for it too much. It's not bad, but I like the older one better. We start on November 13th, 1974, where Ronald DeFeo loads his gun and kills his entire family after hearing voices.
Again.
They ought to just use the same stock footage over and over like all those mummy movies did.
Oh.
Meanwhile, in the past, this happened.
Yeah.
Credits roll. 1 year later, George and Kathy Lutz go house hunting, and they find a super value, a huge house that they can barely afford. The realtor is really nervous about going inside, but they decide to go for it. The realtor does eventually explain what happened a year ago, but then adds, the house is fine. Really?
I thought she played her nervousness really well. And at one point, this kind of made me chuckle. The couple there in another room, well, what do you think? Do you want the house? Do you want the house? And she does. And
okay, we can get the house.
And then she squeals in delight. And the realtor's like, oh my God. Like something happened. Like, oh no, she's just excited. Okay.
The screams in that house are really happy.
Yeah. So the realtor knows that weirdness has happened there. And
Yeah. Well, the very first night, George sees the ghost, a dead girl who appears to be hanging near the foot of his bed. The next day, the young daughter makes an imaginary friend named Jody, and it's the same little girl. The second night, George sees himself killing his own children, and the youngest boy sees a ghost in the bathroom. There's lots of ghostly activity going on in the background that no one but the audience actually sees. George and Kathy go out for dinner and get a babysitter for the kids.
And again, a poor babysitter gets locked in the closet.
Yeah. Things escalate until they end up taking her away in an ambulance.
Yeah, she really fell apart. This one did.
Yeah. Well, lots of weird stuff starts happening.
Why are you smiling? That poor girl. She was traumatized.
That was the worst babysitter ever in the second movie. The original girl was young and she had the braces and she was like
she was
14.
Innocent and naive, and this one was all jaded and smoking pot and telling scary stories to scare the kids. And
yeah, she had it coming.
she did more so than the first one. Yeah.
Well, she babysit the dead girl too, way back in the day.
Yeah, so she had stories to tell about the house.
And even the ghost said she wasn't a very good babysitter.
Yeah.
Well, lots of weird stuff starts happening for no apparent reason, and none of it seems to have anything to do with the DeFeos. There's a whole impossibly silly scene where they all have to climb to the roof of the house because the little girl climbed up there at Jody's direction. Yeah, the whole the girl's way up on top of the peak of the house, about 1,000,000 feet from the ground, and
there's
all
this nice, interesting ledge up there where you can walk out on the very peak of the.
Some houses do have that.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it was wrong or a bad thing. It's just interesting. I'd be really tempted to climb up there all the time if our house had a ledge like that.
Yeah, I bet.
And ours isn't like a 3-story house. So,
Well, Kathy goes to see Father Calloway, a different priest this time, at the nearby church. She tells him that something evil is in the house. George sees something nasty and ends up killing the family dog by mistake. Oops. How's he going to go back for it in the last scene? He's not, I guess.
He doesn't. Yeah.
Well, the priest explains that the Lutz's daughter is playing with Jody's doll, and he remembers that doll was buried with Jody. He then tries to bless the house, which goes just as badly for him as it did for Rod Steiger, only this time with extra CGI.
See, in the first one, they had practical effects, and they put honey all over Rod Steiger's face so the flies would cling to him as and swarms of real flies they used. This was a lot of CGI bugs.
Yeah, there was no real flies were used in the creation of this film.
Yeah, that was kind of oogie in the original.
Yeah, because they were real flies.
They were real flies.
Well, on the 28th day, Kathy goes to the library and learns the whole story, along with graphic flashbacks involving torturing Native Americans in the 1600s.
The house was built on an evil spot, an evil place.
George breaks down a wall in the basement and finds a hidden room, and then he gets flashes of the same information. As Kathy rushes home to get everyone out of the house, George goes fully over the edge. Before long, everyone is back outside, on the roof, in a thunderstorm, for a soggy climax.
Yep.
The same outline,
That sums it up.
All the details have been changed.
Pretty much.
Well, they've added a lot of family drama to this one, with kids missing their dead father and George trying too hard to fit in with Kathy's kids. In this film, a lot of George's craziness comes off as child abuse, which didn't really factor in at all in the 1970s version. In the original Amityville Horror, George hit Kathy one time in one scene, but we get the clear impression that here there's a lot more of it, and it's all directed at the children, because child abuse is creepier than wife abuse in the films. Yeah. Send him the emails. The basic story here is all there, but they've also thrown in a bunch of jump scares and CGI creatures that are completely unnecessary. There's just lots of stuff thrown in to make this story seem different from the original. While the original film still holds up pretty well, this just feels like any other man is going insane horror film. With all the added backstory and history with the Indians and the old preacher, this feels a lot like a Poltergeist 2 remake than the Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
I'm going to change my review to a 4.
You're running it. You're talking yourself right out of it.
Yeah, I just talked myself out of a couple of points there.
Talking it out of liking this movie.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
Well, that's our show. Yeah, thanks for joining us. Stop in during the week at horrorguys.com to read all of next week's reviews before the show. You can get a little preview there. Or to contact us or follow us on any of the social media things. Email us at horrorguysmail, @gmail.com. Check out our YouTube channel, which if you're watching it, like and subscribe. If you're not watching us, well, you can. You go there and find us. Got a Facebook group, facebook.com/horrorguyspodcast. Twitter, @horrorbulletin. I'm @Brian Shell. Kevin is there, @80coin.
There are so many ways to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
I never realized how many
there are. Try one.
Try them all. Yeah.
And of course, then there's Patreon and buymeacoffee.com.
And a phone number, too. Got a phone number.
937-453-1575. Leave us a voicemail. We might even play your message on the show.
Ooh, that'd be neat.
I'm Brian.
I'm Kevin.
We'll see you. But before we do, we got films next week also.
What are we going to see?
We'll begin with Sherlock Holmes and the Pearl of Death from 1944.
Another Rondo Hatton.
That's why we're watching it. It's not so much horror, but
to collect the whole set.
Yeah, it's Rondo didn't make that many films, so we're going to catch them all.
It's the same guy.
The Creeper. It's the Creeper character. Same character.
Yeah.
Followed by The Mummy Shroud from 1967, The Invisible Man from 2020, and Seoul Station from 2016, just released in the United States in 2020.
Which is a prequel to... Sequel? Prequel.
Prequel.
To
Train to Busan.
Train to Busan, which was truly excellent.
And
So
they're making a sequel to that, which is not out yet.
Looking forward to Soul Station, especially.
Yeah.
And Invisible Man, too. I've heard interesting things about that.
I've heard good things and bad things on the Invisible Man, so we'll find out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I've seen the Mummy Shroud way back in the day with all the other hammers.
Mida. Yeah.
Pearl of Death. I've read all the Sherlock Holmes
so.
stories, but I mean, I've not seen all the old ones, so that'll be new.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.